You are absolutely correct. Naturally, as a sector, we were looking forward to being a part of the next phase that would then be prioritized for the vaccination rollout program. Of course, that our hope also was amplified by the fact that we are aware that the school in particular can potentially become an epicenter of the spread of the virus. So we really were looking forward to being into this particular phase. However, what we are saying is that we remain optimistic. We think that we want to give the government also a benefit of the doubt and say that, of course, there are challenges that they are experiencing currently. However, I want to emphasize that also moving forward, especially towards the 26th of June, where we'll be expecting all the learners to come back into normal timetabling. We are therefore hoping that at least at that time, there would have been something that would have been done to at least get a majority of our members vaccinated. So whilst we are indeed dampened in terms of our mood, and I can, however, assure you that we remain optimistic, and we are hopeful that indeed a sense that we're getting is that indeed education is being prioritized.
Now, there's also the view that there's the need for further discussions between SADTU as well as education authorities to discuss the rollout of vaccines and get a clearer idea of how these vaccines will be rolled out to teachers. The need for them to be effectively rolled out and to establish where the vaccination centers would be, because the districts are very vast. How far are these discussions?
Well, the discussions are ongoing, Tlatlana. But you must also remember that the discussions by their very nature, they are also directly proportional to the kind of data that we are receiving on the ground. What we are doing on our side as a union, for instance, not just SADTU, by the way, all the other 4 recognized unions in the Education Labour Relations Council, is that we are continuously acquiring the data, the scientific facts on the ground, utilizing our structures as well. So the discussions are ongoing. That is why we are saying that as we move, especially towards the 26th, and as we observe how this particular third wave is going to really be impacting the country, that is when then we are going to be able to come back also, even in public, because we're also consulting other various expert institutions as well that are advising us as to what should be the next move. So the discussions are ongoing, but they are also very, very reliant on the data and scientific facts that we are continuously getting as a union, particularly on our side, and of course engaging both departments, being the DBE and the DOH.
Now, given this apparent speed bump on the rollout of more vaccines, what are you saying to your members to encourage them to respond positively to this call that's being made by the Department of Basic Education to take the vaccination when informed to do so?
Well, you are correct. It actually is indeed a speed bump, but we are equally confident as a union, because what we did, that over the past 2 weeks, we rolled out a survey, not just SADTU. Like I said, we worked very closely with the other 4 unions in the ALRC. We were trying to establish the attitudes and the perceptions that education workers have in terms of receiving this particular vaccine. And we're quite pleasantly surprised, really, that there is a positive attitude towards it. I think that our members, education workers, also realize, in fact, that we are sitting here on the verge of nothing short of a generational catastrophe. The interruptions and the disruptions that have been happening in the education sector related to the various lockdown levels, the opening and closing of the schools, and this rotational timetabling, etc., the anxiety that we are seeing right now, all of us within the schooling community. So they realize that indeed we really are sitting here on the verge of something which could take us a generation to really fix. So our members, and indeed education workers by and large, we're quite optimistic. Their attitudes are such that we need to be vaccinated. The sooner the better, because it is also in our interest to have the education system rolling out as a matter of urgency.
Now, given the rise of cases of COVID-19, would you agree that people are letting their guard down when it comes to this virus? I mean, it's still out there and also killing people.
Well, that is possibly an observation that we would need to discuss at a broader level as society. And I like the question, however, are people letting their guard down? And perhaps really that is a conversation that we should be led to by the relevant experts. We already know that, for instance, the Premier of Gauteng was speaking just recently and saying that indeed there is now seemingly a change of perceptions in terms of how we are dealing in terms of the virus. However, when it comes to the schooling environment in particular, what we are seeing that there is also an inconsistent application of the standard operating procedures that we all agreed upon. For instance, Other schools continue operating even though they are positive confirmed cases. Other schools observe the 7 to 14 days that is required so that there can be adequate decontamination, case tracking, etc., etc. So that is also what we need to emphasize on, and I really like how you phrased the question, and it also gives us an opportunity as such to say that we should not let the guard down as a country nationally.
I want us to reflect a bit on developments this week. We've heard from the Gauteng Education Department, which raised concern over the uptick in cases, especially amongst learners. And we also heard from the EFF leader, Julius Malema, during a media briefing, calling for the complete closure of schools and also giving the Department of Basic Education a deadline to close schools within a week, or they will take action. Give us your sense about what's being said here.
Well, it would be difficult, honestly, to respond to a call made by the EFF because they are not necessarily a union in education. We believe ourselves, as such in particular, that we probably are well placed. We are well placed because we are there in the schools. We are aware as to what is happening. We believe that we are well placed because we also receive very, very consistently. We get information utilizing our structures. It is what is happening on the ground. So our view, Nhlanhla, is that our pronouncements as a country and how we really view education, they must be informed by scientific data. It must be scientific facts, not political anecdotes. I don't think that as a union would be interested in that. That is why we are saying, from our side as such, we are going to continuously monitor what is happening on the ground. And when the time comes for us to make such a call based on what we have observed, then we are surely going to do that, and vociferously so.
Now, given the spike in cases recorded at schools, what word of caution would you like to relay, especially to teachers, to continue complying with these COVID-19 protocols at schools?
Well, for us, it is about the standard operating procedures. What we are saying, and we've always made it clear to our members, you would recall and appreciate that it was actually SADTU that pushed back when we started this particular conversation of lockdowns in the context of the schooling system. It was SADTU that pushed back by no less than 2 months, actually. And we said that, no, we need more time to understand what we're dealing with right now. We've always been vociferous in terms of telling our members that where they feel that they are not safe, where they feel that the standard operating procedures are not being applied adequately, they have got every right not to be in that environment. And we are continuously telling them right now. And we believe that even the surveys that we continue to conduct so that we can get the data that we require actually do indicate that our members are indeed prepared to even assist us in terms of monitoring. And they also give us information in instances whereby the standard operating procedures that we agreed upon are not necessarily being applied. So we are saying to them, if you feel that you are not safe in that environment, it is your right not to be in that environment, because the health and safety of our learners and of our teachers remains sacrosanct to us as a union.
But judging by what you're saying, it seems to me that you are using a more wait-and-see type of approach. Wouldn't you rather be more proactive in terms of your response, especially to this uptick in the number of cases recorded, not just amongst teachers, but also learners as well?
But then you would also recall, that also there are some experts who tell us that the risk is greater within the adult population and lesser in terms of the learners that we teach. And yes, we are seeing those cases. So what we're saying is that there must be a balance in terms of how we see the facts. And our reliance as such, and I want to emphasize this, has always been on the data. It is not just about a wait-and-see approach. Like I said, for the very reason, by the way, that we had to get all the stakeholders to agree to these minimum requirements that we said we require them to be there in the schools for us to declare the schools to be safe to teach. It was us who did that, and we did that on the basis of the facts that we require, because we are also a worker control union, so we rely on that data. So it is not just it's not about not being proactive. We actually are being proactive. That is why we are saying that there has to be a balance, because equally in Atlanta, we must also appreciate that we are really sitting here on the verge of a generational catastrophe. It takes years to sort out the time lost that especially would have lost like now in the lower phases. However, that what we are saying as a union is that the safety of our members, the safety of our learners remains sacrosanct. That is why our systems, our structures are well activated to report to us regularly as to what is happening, and we'll be the first ones to make such calls if we then need to go into a far much more route that will go towards even considering the closing of the schools. So we rely on the data, the scientific facts. That's what matters.
That's Mr. Xolani Fakude there from SADTU, giving us a sense of their response, especially to the uptick of COVID-19 cases amongst teachers as well as learners. While still